This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm Mac Pritchard, your host and publisher of Mac's List. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Ben Forstag, our managing director, and Jenna Forstrom, our community manager. This week, we're talking about how to treat your career as if you're an intrapreneur. Our show is brought to you by Hack the Hidden Job Market, the new online course for Mac's List that starts November 1st. As many as 8 out of 10 jobs never get advertised. Is your dream job one of them? Learn how to uncover hidden jobs and get noticed by the hiring managers who fill them. Visit maxlist.org/course. When you've accepted a new job, have you ever said to yourself, thank goodness I don't need to think about job hunting again for a long, long time? But the odds are good that you'll return to the job market again soon. Data from the federal government says the typical American changes jobs about every 4 years. That doesn't mean your job search never ends, but you do need to think about how you manage your career for the long haul. This week's guest expert, Michelle Ward, says you should treat your career as if you were an intrapreneur. She explains why and how to do it later in the show. We spend more time online with our smartphones than ever before. In response, employers now use apps to find workers. In a moment, Ben Forstag will tell us how to use your phone to discover and apply for your next job. How do you know if it's time to leave your industry for a new sector? And how do you make that change? That's the question this week from veteran broadcaster Matt Kundle. Jenna Forstrom shares her advice in a moment. As always, let's check in with the Mac's List team. Jenna, Ben, how are you two this week?
Doing great.
I'm doing awesome.
Okay, big shout out to Jenna, who had a birthday this weekend. I don't know if we're allowed to mention the number of years, perhaps not.
I've joined the 30-year-old birthday club next decade. Whoop, whoop.
Okay.
Bring it.
Congrats. And I'm glad you had you had a wonderful birthday weekend.
I did. It was great.
Terrific. Well, this week we're talking about careers and why people should treat their careers as if they're an entrepreneur. I'm curious, when did you two realize that in order to get ahead professionally, you had to think about more than just answering job ads? You had to think about your career for the long haul.
Probably after about 4 months of unsuccessfully just applying for jobs I found online. I guess I've been lucky in my career in the sense that I've always gone from job to job relatively smoothly without ever having a big prolonged period of unemployment until right before I started a Mac's List, where I was unemployed for about 6 months. And the first 4 months of that was I'm applying to jobs that I found online that I actually found on Mac's List, Mac. It took me 4 months of futility and being frustrated before I realized there's got to be a better way to do this. And I went back to the starting line and looked at how to network and build out networks and connect with folks. And shortly after I took that new approach, good things started happening.
How about you, Jenna?
I grew up, my dad works at Nike, and so I grew up always hearing that no one ever gets a job from a job board site. Like Nike only hires people that they know, and that was just like a known fact in Beaverton, Oregon. And so when I went away to college and went to Boston, and everyone was like, oh yeah, like be on LinkedIn and applying for jobs and Monster and Indeed. And I tried that after college, and I sure my 2008 college resume is like forever on the internet somewhere, and just never heard back. Complete crickets. And then moved back to Portland, and one of my friends turned me on to Mac's List. And at least when you apply, you hear back yes or no, or there's a little bit more follow-up because it's real people and stuff like that. But I think just, again, most people I know don't get jobs from a job board. That's from someone they know through networking, or a neighbor's friend is hiring and they are playing golf or checking out a barbecue or getting the mail, and they're like, oh yeah, you'd be great for this. So
yeah, and you definitely need to do both. Job boards can help, and we're very proud of our job board at Mac's List, but we always encourage people to get out and network and not only think about your next job, but think about your career for the long haul. Like you, Ben, I think I saw the light about career management in my mid-20s when I went through a long period of unemployment, and it was about 7-8 months. But before then, I got 3 great jobs right in a row. And I just thought, oh, this is easy to find work. And when I had that spell of unemployment, it not only helped me become a better job hunter, but it helped me think about what I needed to do in my career professionally, both in terms of getting out and networking with people and eventually getting a graduate degree and other steps.
Well, and I think it's interesting that the story that you and I and Jenna all shared, I think this is indicative of most people, which is, you don't learn what works until you learn what doesn't work often, right? And almost every job seeker I talk to, they spend a lot of time doing the online job board thing exclusively, and it's a learning process to figure out what works. And it's not a natural thing for most folks, but you can figure out how to do the networking game and land a good job.
Yeah, those are all skills that you can master. And we talk a lot about that on the show and in our blog and book and now in our upcoming course too. But let's turn to you, Ben. And you're out there every week exploring the internet, looking for the websites, books, and tools people can use to get ahead in their job search and career. What have you found this week?
So this week I want to talk about a web app called switchapp.com, which is a very quick and easy way to see what jobs are out there. Now, Mac, are you familiar with the web app Tinder?
I've heard of it. Chris and I just had our 30th wedding anniversary last year, so I've not been in the Tinder pool I would never was, actually. It didn't exist.
Yeah, so I got married before Tinder came around too, so I never actually used it. But you're familiar with it. It's basically like a dating app, and they just show you a picture of the person with some like very minimal info, and you swipe left if you like the person and right if you don't.
I think left if you don't like them and right if you do like them.
Okay, the persecution of lefties continues. So this app is essentially the Tinder, but for your job search. And so you download the app, you enter your location and your industry and the years of experience, and then based off of job descriptions that are out there, it presents you like a very high level list of jobs, and you kind of do the right left swiping depending on whether you like the job or not. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know quite how effective this is. I played around with it a little bit, and it's a good way of like matching you up with a job, but it's certainly, you're not going to get the job by swiping your finger one direction or the other. And I think it's mostly a way of getting a sense of opportunities that are publicly advertised in your area and whether they line up with kind of your general interests. And there's probably a lot of legwork you have to do on the back end to go from that I'm interested in this job to actually get the job. But it's a nice kind of cool little app, and it's a fun way to spend 10 minutes just kind of seeing what's out there. I will also say that this seems to be mostly focused on New York City and San Francisco, where there's a lot of tech jobs. I typed in Portland, and there was a handful of jobs, but not like the big mass that you see in those tech-heavy markets. But cool app. Definitely check it out, especially if you're in New York or San Francisco.
Okay. And we have a national audience, so results may vary depending on your community. And so even if you're not in New York or San Francisco, you might give it a try.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't check out every market in the States, but I think if you go there, you probably find at least a dozen jobs to look through. And the way these things work, typically, the longer the app's been out, the more jobs will show up. So if you come back in a month, there might be 2 or 3 times as many jobs as there are today.
Well, terrific. Well, thanks, Ben. And if you've got a suggestion for Ben, you can write him, and we may share your idea on the show. His address is ben@maxlist.org. Now let's turn to you, our listeners. Jenna Forstrom, our community manager, is here, and she joins us to answer one of your questions. Jenna, what's in the Max List mailbag this week?
Today we have a voicemail from Matt Kundle.
Hi, Mac. My name is Matt Kundle, and I'm from Winnipeg, Canada. 2 years ago, I was restructured out of my job as a program director at a large radio corporation, and I had about 9 months worth of severance, and in that time, I took about 6 to myself, and then I started to look for work, and what I found out was they're not hiring for my position in a lot of places across the country. So I went into consulting, and I did that for about a year, and had some marginal results. 2 great clients, but they turned over rather quickly at about 8-9 months. I picked up voiceover to supplement my income, and have done very well with that, and I'm thinking about expanding that part of my business. I also got into podcasting with the Sound Off podcast, knowing that I have all these great tools to be a great broadcaster, so I can now be a podcaster. At this point, I think I'm saying goodbye to radio. I've applied to about 50, 60 jobs, and I'm making many of the same mistakes your listeners are making, and that's looking at job boards and then applying. What else can I do to jumpstart my way into a new business that's probably looking at me with a lot of radio experience, but it doesn't necessarily apply to what their business is all about? I've also considered moving to new cities, but it's the same problem. It's not going to pay as much, and the cost of living elsewhere is more expensive. Thanks a lot, Mac, and your team is great. The podcast is great. Keep up the good work.
Hey, Matt, thanks for your question. We really appreciate you calling in. And my response was, what we talk a lot about this at Mac's List, about transferable skills. So you are in radio and communication, so you obviously have really strong oral skills, which is really good. So for presentations and meeting management, but then also I'm assuming you have really good writing skills too. And then because I work on a podcast and he runs a podcast, I know he's obviously got some great project management experience and listening skills, because you're always talking to people and you have to be on the fly and be actively listening. And I think all those skill sets are really great things that any growing organization would be interested in. So as long as you're promoting the work that you're doing. So like while I was, laid off, or while I was unemployed, I started a podcast and I learned audio engineering. That shows curiosity and this natural ability to grow and continue learning. And then just talk about that in your resume on LinkedIn, in your cover letter with your the hiring managers. But Mac and Ben, do you guys have any other tips?
Well, I think a couple things. You hit on one, which is you always want to show that you're staying up to date and relevant with the technology and new trends. And certainly when it comes to audio or radio, podcasting is the hot new thing. So being able to transition from that broadcast format to the podcast format is a skill and a value that I think a lot of employers would really find valuable. The other thing that I think you could think about here in terms of transferable skills is that you've got this huge wealth of information and knowledge about how broadcasting works. And there's so many organizations out there that they may not be broadcasters themselves or in the media, but they're desperate to get the media's attention for their own internal stories, whether it's press releases or getting favorable coverage otherwise. And being able to go into those organizations and say, I have all these contacts in the broadcast media. I know how the media works. I know how they think. Hire me and I can help you get your story out there to a larger audience through the media. Those are two different options I would think about.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, those are great suggestions from both of you. And I think you nailed it, Jenna, with your focus on the transferable skills. And Ben, I like your point about the value that Matt brings with his media relationships, because I run a public relations company. In addition to Mac's List, I've worked in media relations for a long time. And there've been, as our listeners know, and Matt certainly does, a lot of big changes in the media business in the last 20 years. I've seen many reporters, producers, and on-air personalities make a change out of broadcasting into public information officer roles, sometimes with hospitals, sometimes with public agencies or elected officials. And they get hired because they have those transferable skills that Jenna was talking about, as well as those contacts that you mentioned. And there's another advantage Matt has here is increasingly organizations are making their own media, and people who know how to do that, not just who know how to create podcasts or run blogs, that has a lot of value to employers. So I think Matt's challenge is he needs to decide if he wants to continue to look for a in-house job. And if he does, I would position himself as somebody with great media contacts and who knows how to create media. Or if he wants to go into business for himself and get hired to create media for as a contractor, he may end up, it might be an ideal thing for him to do both and get a day job and always keep a few clients on the side as sort of a side project that could grow into a full-time business eventually.
Yeah, I think that's dead on. And, nowadays original content is so valuable and every organization is doing the content marketing thing. And so people who can come in, whether you're a good writer or a good audio producer or you can do videos, any skill like that is hugely sought after.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Jenna and Ben, and thank you, Matt, for your question. If you have a question for us, please email Jenna. Her address is jenna@maxlist.org, Or you can call our listener line, and that number is area code 716-JOB-TALK. That's 716 Job Talk. These segments with Ben and Jenna are sponsored by Hack the Hidden Job Market. It's the new online course for MaxList. As many as 80% of all jobs never get posted. Instead, employers fill these openings by word of mouth. Our new course shows you how this hidden job market works. We'll teach you how to find plum gigs that never appear on a job board, how to stand out in a crowd of applicants, and how to connect with insiders who can help your career. In each of the course's 12 modules, you get the tools and tips you need to get the work you want. Meaningful work, work that makes a difference, work that you can love. Hack the Hidden Job Market launches November 1st. Don't wait. Get updates and lock in the early bird price now. Go to maxlist.org/course. Now let's turn to this week's guest expert, Michelle Ward. Michelle Ward has been offering career guidance for creative women as the When I Grow Up coach since 2008. She's the co-author of The Declaration of You, which is published by Northlight Books. Michelle also teaches a class, Create Your Dream Career and Ditch Your Day Job, on creativelive.com. She joins us today from Montclair, New Jersey. Michelle, thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And today we're talking about our careers and why we should think like an entrepreneur when we think about both our jobs and our careers. And candidly, Michelle, I think a lot of people, and I certainly had this thought at different points in my career, they think once I've landed a job, well, gosh, that's great. I don't need to think about job hunting or my career for a while. Tell us, Michelle, why isn't that a good idea?
Oh, my goodness, so many reasons. I think it is certainly not a help for you when it's time for your performance review, which we all have in more corporate traditional job settings, usually at least once a year. And I know in my experience, I worked as an executive assistant for a financial consulting company while I was in school to be a life coach and work my way to becoming the When I Grow Up coach full time. And it was always a panic when it was review time, and you would think about examples of things that you wanted to write about, of what you did well, of what's working and maybe not working so well for you in your job. And you have a whole year's worth of material to kind of look at. And unless you are keeping track of what is working for you at work, what you're being complimented on, the wins that you have, as well as what's not working, as well as what might not be aligned to either your biggest purpose or the skill set that you enjoy using at work, then you can't really get yourself in the driver's seat of your career. You can't really keep yourself on track, or maybe, I've had clients do this, maybe have your job kind of shift your responsibilities into things that you want to do. And then, of course, I would think that it goes without saying, and I've seen this a whole lot of times also, that when it is time to go get a new job, you have this resume that is very old and very dusty, and to create it from the ground up, or from, however long it's been since you went to look for your last job, is really daunting. And so if you have your eye on this, if you update your resume, maybe once or twice a year, even if you're happy in your job, at least you have something current and you're able to really put your best foot forward, both with the job you have and maybe one that you want down the line.
So, Michelle, what are some of your best tips for how to keep track of your progress, your accomplishments, your wins, whether it's for that annual review or just that semi-annual tune-up of your resume?
I like to call this tool a win book, but I'm a hippy-dippy life coachy person, and that makes me happy. If anyone's rolling their eyes, you could call it, your accomplishment book or your career book or anything that you want to call it that makes you feel good about taking it out and writing in it. For me, when I was back at that job, I would have a folder in my Outlook that was called good things or compliments or something. And whenever I would get a compliment, either from someone else or even to myself, I'd write myself a quick email saying, I think I did a good job with such and such, or I felt really good about this presentation that I gave. Or maybe I want to start a book club for people in my office that want time management techniques. I would put it in that folder, and then that would be the place that I would go when it was time to fill out my performance review. But I would say now, I do this on Evernote, which it's really easy to just highlight things online and then put it in a folder on Evernote. I've had people do this by hand, or people just create folders and just fill out a Word document on their computer. It kind of doesn't matter the format that it's in. What matters is that it's easy for you, and you will continuously add to it and be able to easily review it and remember it. Just don't write things down on lots of different scraps of paper and have them everywhere. That's not going to be helpful.
So I have one place. It might be an old-fashioned manila folder in a drawer, but
Sure.
It could be an Evernote file or something online. But put everything in one place. Don't scatter it.
Yes, absolutely. And just, the key is really about external compliments and internal things that made you proud when it came to your job. They're just as important. How you feel about the work you're doing is just as important as the external validation and compliments that you receive.
Now, some of the other advice I've seen you give online is about the importance of having an online presence and not just having your LinkedIn page in good order, but actually sharing your interests and writing about or things you care about. Tell us the advantages of that and how it can help people with their career.
I think it's twofold. I think, number one, it establishes you as an expert in whatever you want to be known to be doing. And for some people, that's very directly related to the work that they're doing. And for others, sometimes it's not. So this is especially important if you're looking for a career transition, but you don't necessarily have professional experience in that field. Then that's really helpful. And I could give you an example from a former client of mine who started her own Etsy shop when she was doing government work. And what wound up happening was after a few years, she put the Etsy shop on her resume, did not hide the fact that she had this Etsy shop, and she made X amount of sales every year, and she went to like shows and fairs and sold her stuff and sold it online. And she wound up getting a marketing job that was really much more aligned with the things that she wanted to be working on, because she was able to harness the fact that she had this personal project and this presence, and that she was able to make X amount of sales every year in order to get a job that was more aligned with the things that she wanted to be doing. So that was really interesting. Even though she didn't have a marketing background or a degree or anything like that, her own personal project landed her the job that she wanted. And then I think the other side of things and really being very upfront about your own work and having that presence online is that you wind up, I think, in the best environment for you. So I have been surprised in having the realization that a lot of my clients, most of them, I don't want to say it doesn't matter what they do at work, because obviously it does matter, but what often matters just as much, if not more, is the environment that they're in. That's been really interesting to me. And when you're able to be upfront and say, here's my blog, or here's my shop, or here's the improv comedy that I do on weekends or whatever, you're bringing your whole self into the room, and I think the kind of companies that really appreciate that and are responsive to it are the ones that are the better environments and where you're going to be more likely to feel more authentic and at ease and comfortable in that setting with those people, because they're accepting all of you when you walk in the door for that interview.
Now, I know in addition to sharing your personal interests and outside of the workplace, you're also a big believer in having a personal elevator pitch. Tell us why that's important, Michelle, and what's your advice about how to put one together?
Yeah, I think it's important because it's a way for you to differentiate yourself. And again, I think this is important even if you're not actively looking for work. It's really the difference between saying, I'm an accountant, and I'm an accountant who specializes in working with small business owners to help them get the most tax benefits. So A is someone, oh, okay, I'm an accountant, great, all right. B, I immediately go, oh, I could use help with that, or I think of other people that I know who have asked me about that, or, oh, I know so-and-so has their own small business, or, oh, this person just moved to the area and probably needs help with their taxes, and it allows me to make connections that I didn't make before. And again, even if you're not actively looking for work, having, the light bulb go off in someone's mind when they hear about what you do and be able to make that connection, that's nothing but a win-win situation. And so really, I think it could be as simple as, the title of what you do. I'm a blank who works with blank, or who specializes in blank, or who wants to focus on blank. If you are actively looking for work, that's a really great way to say, oh, I'm a social media manager who's looking to work with small businesses with a mission. That's going to be able, again, to put the light bulb on in the other person's head and think, oh, how could I make that connection? And really differentiates you from the rest of the accountants out there.
So one of the great reasons to have an elevator pitch, besides those you laid out, is when you go to events or conferences. Why should people go to conferences or other events, Michelle? How can that help their career?
Again, I think it's about connections. And I think that if you are going to conferences that you legitimately want to be at, right? That's not just a sole, networking kind of experience that you're dragging your feet and you're there because, you have to be there because your boss wants you to be there. But you find the conferences, and now there are so many, if you find the conferences that really mesh well with either what you do at work or what you want to be doing. I know of a lot of people who have sold their managers on conferences that they want to attend, even if it's not directly related to the work that they want to be doing, because they're able to say, this is what I want to learn about. So if you really focus on the learning experience, then again, the networking and the connection piece and maybe being able to, find more clients or get a different job is going to be a side effect of that. And that all leads up to feeling authentic in your work and enjoying what you do and feeling valuable in what you're giving others.
Good. And I also know that you think people should have a personal business card rather than something for their firm. Tell us more about that. Yeah.
I think this especially goes for anyone actively looking for work and anyone who, maybe feels a bit more disconnected with their job. If you love your job, if you know you are probably going to be there forever, pass out those professional business cards with, your company's information. But I think there's something just really empowering, especially if you have your own website and you're working on your own blog or you have your own creative project, to just have, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You could go to vistaprint.com, you could go to moo.com, you could find a template that you really like and just plug in, your name, maybe your title, how you want people to see you, along with your own blog or project or website that is just, your name, your portfolio, some of your work. Here's how you could contact me. And that could be it. And there's something there that then allows you to personally connect with someone as opposed to rerouting them through, your work email and shutting them out from that extracurricular work that you do and the way that you might want to get to know them.
Well, terrific. What else would you like to add, Michelle?
I think just, with that, making sure that you have that personal website. Now that it kind of came up, I went, oh yeah, go have a personal website. Even if it's something that's one page, that's more of, here's my picture, here's my own personal mission statement and the work that I enjoy doing. Here's where you could find me online. I love taking pictures. Here's my Instagram account. Contact me about XYZ. There's a two wonderful sites, one called about.me and one that's called branded.me. That makes this really easy. But go and do that for yourself and see kind of where it takes you, and go get those business cards, and don't be afraid to put your whole self forward when it comes to your work and your career.
That's great advice, and I think I certainly see the job seekers and the people who are successful not only in getting their next position, but in having a career they find rewarding. They play to all their interests, and work isn't just something that happens between 9 to 5, and they're not afraid to share their personal interests as well.
Yes, absolutely. I like to say that the simplification of the work that I do is to allow my clients to wake up in the morning, think of the day that they have ahead of them, and know that they're looking forward to at least 70% of it. So I really feel that that's about, the work that you get to do, the people you get to work with, and really feeling as authentic as possible during the day, that you're not wearing these different masks or wearing these different hats, and by again, putting your whole self out there, not being afraid to share your personal projects, you're going to be able to find that environment. You're going to be able to find those people. You're going to be able to lead with the skill set that you want to be using, as opposed to one that maybe you've honed and really perfected through the years, but you don't enjoy using at all. So we're looking for, that the other side of the coin there, instead of just, let's make money off these things that I've done that I don't like anymore, and I dread my work. That's never the goal.
Yeah, no, and coincidentally, we're recording this on a Monday, and I was looking forward to coming to work today, and I bet you were too.
Yes, always. And often, I love and hate to admit it, I don't even know what day it is. You know what I mean? I go, is it Thursday? Is it Monday? I don't know. And that's a wonderful feeling, that I'm not counting down to the weekend, or I'm not living for, that 5 o'clock bell, and everything just feels a lot more seamless in my life, which is so nice, so nice.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something we should all strive for. Well,
absolutely.
Michelle, tell us what's coming up next for you.
What's coming up next is a program called 90-Day Business Launch, where a colleague of mine, her name is Laura Sims, she and I work together with just 10 women to help you craft your 90-day business launch plan. So we do that customized for everyone, and that will be launching at the end of October. But everyone could go to whenIgrowupcoach.com, sign up for my list. I do a monthly live interview series that I'd love for you to check out, and you could find my Facebook on there and my Twitter and everywhere I am online. I'd love for you to look around and contact me with any questions or thoughts. I'm always on the other side of an email.
Great, and we'll include links to all of those sites in our show notes, as well as to your main site, which I think you already mentioned, whenIgrowupcoach.com. Well, Michelle, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're back in the Max List studio. Jenna, Ben, I'm curious, what were some key points you heard Michelle make?
One thing that Michelle said that I thought was really interesting is that the whole idea that job searching is not like a discrete part of your career. It's the skills you develop in job searching are really the same things that contribute to your success once you're in the job. And so this idea that you're kind of constantly being vigilant in your job search and keeping your professional resume and your accomplishments well documented, this is not just about finding the next job. It's about doing the job that you have right now well. And I think that's something that gets ignored a lot when we talk about conversations about job search. Finding a job and doing a job are often two sides of the same coin.
How about you, Jenna?
I really liked how she just talked holistically about to find joy and happiness in your job. You want to work at a place where people can love and respect you for the things you do outside of work as well. Like if I come here and I talk about volunteering with the homeless all the time, and I feel like if that drove you guys crazy, it would be like such a painful aspect of it. But since I know you guys like support me in what I do outside of Max List, it's really easy to talk about those things in the same way that Mac talks about Joan Crawford movies, and I am learning to know who this woman is and who Mac hangs out with watching movies with. And then Ben talks about his kids all the time. And if that was painful, he wouldn't have to be able to talk about them all the time. But he does.
Mac, you're hanging out at movies with Joan Crawford nowadays?
No. Is that it?
No,
I'm learning.
I'm a big fan of Joan Crawford and other film stars in the 1930s and 40s. So it's been a big summer for me because there has been 18 movies in the Joan Crawford and Betty Davis Film Festival here in Portland, which ended on Sunday with Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So I know it's like speaking in code for anybody under 60, but it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys putting up with my anecdotes about
But this
those
is
movies.
a safe place to talk about it.
So, well, it is indeed. And when I think about Michelle and the interview with her today, what I loved is when she said, if you can come into work and you're looking forward to it and you may not even be aware of what day it is. I mean, I can't think of a better way of defining that you've found a job and a vocation that is right for you. And I think to her broader point, it just doesn't happen by answering an ad. Yes, you've got to look at job ads, but you also, as she said, you've got to think about your career and the work you love and how you can manage your career to get those opportunities again and again. Okay, well, thank you both, and thank you, Michelle, for joining us this week. And thank you all for listening to today's episode of Find Your Dream Job. If you like what you hear, please sign up for our free weekly newsletter. In each issue, we give you the key points of that week's show. We also include links to all the resources mentioned, and you get a transcript of the full episode. If you subscribe to the newsletter now, we'll send you our job seeker checklist. In one easy-to-use file, we show you all the steps you need to take to find a great job. Get your free newsletter and checklist today. Go to maxlist.org/podcast. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job.